You want it to be perfect,
We
you
are
say?
consummate professionals.
Professionale.
We consume professionalism.
Profession.
Consuming professionals.
Extruding professionalism.
We excrete professionalism.
Sweat it.
Sweat it.
Okay.
I'm going to blow up the Ark, Molaram. You want to see it open as well as I. Ah, he's right. I didn't think this plan through very well at all, did I? Well, I guess I'm going to get tied up.
Oh, well, I guess I'm here.
I like that Indy's big, like the last consequential thing he does in Raiders of the Lost Ark is like
Surrender to Nazis?
pretty much because he wants to blow up the Ark. The French guy Belloc reminds him that he probably can't actually do that, and there's nothing else Indy actually like actively does after that. I guess he tells Miriam to close her eyes so she doesn't get zapped. But
It's old news at this point that movie it's inconsequential that Indy is there. It would have ended the same way. Except the only difference is that he allowed them to find the Ark. So if he was removed from the equation, either they wouldn't have found the Ark, problem solved, or they find the Ark and they open it and their faces melt, problem solved. So really,
okay. So I mean, I guess he found the Ark so that all their faces would melt. Otherwise, their faces wouldn't have melted, and there'd be that many more Nazis around.
True, I guess.
I don't know, but no, that's interesting. That's I think I had heard that before, but I forgot about it again.
Yeah, it's an old thing by this point.
Yeah.
Hello, dig for bones.
Hello and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place where science, skepticism, humor, and anthropology meet to discuss all things spooky, haunting, supernatural, and sometimes just the plain ridiculous. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me, as almost always, is the rarely reticent retorter to reprehensible rude raiders ruefully rapturing rare reliquaries repeatedly, randomly, and without rhyme or reason, rightly researching righteous revenge and repatriation.
Garth, the righteous. I only reap righteous revenge. No, I only what do I do with the righteous revenge?
You
relegate it.
You rightly research righteous revenge.
Oh yeah,
and repatriation.
I never research wrongful revenge because that would not be truly alliterative, even though it sounds alliterative. Hi, I'm Garth. Everybody, this is the Least Haunted Podcast, where we're going to be talking about what are we talking about today?
Well, as always, before we get into that, we just want to let everybody know we have a Patreon.
Oh, yeah. We're telling everybody at the beginning. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/leasthaunted if you want to become a bona fide of ours.
If you want to support us in what we do, there's benefits and bonuses available in various tiers. So you know how Patreon works. Yeah.
We don't need to go over all of that. But we could. Anyway, I'm going to go over all of it. Let's see. But $5 a month for all kinds of things. $10 a month, you get in the Monster Squadron, and your name will be in a Garth's Corner song.
And just for $1 a month, you get any bonus content that we produce in the course of a month. And, So.
Oh, also spooky checks. Anything spooky happening
spooky
in your
check.
life?
Give me a second here.
Well, you think about it. My cats had fleas, so there were almost invisible demons in my house.
You found yourself in Aliens.
Well, essentially, it's not truly anything supernatural, but the way of combating it seems really supernatural because we like bringing bay leaves into the house to like ward them off.
Yeah,
and we're like I lit all these candles. I had like 20 candles.
Yeah, you were doing
like
hippie rituals.
Yeah. It looks like we're warding off spirits, but we had all these candles with little motes of water around them with soapy water, so that they would like be attracted to the heat of the candles and then drown in them. So
and you have to have the soap on the water to break the surface tension because
they have a harder time getting out of it.
It's because that they are so small that they just
they would probably just bounce off
the
surface of the water otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we're finally getting it under control. It's been pretty all consuming for the last few days, but things are turning good that way. So
nice.
By the time this comes out in 2 days, hopefully we'll be in good shape. We'll see.
I was attempting to have a spooky encounter and something happened, and then everything fell through. Last week, I took a trip up to Clear Lake to visit my sister Summer.
Hi, Summer. if you're listening to this. I don't know if she listens to it, but if she
She
does.
does. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Hi, Summer.
And Danny in Summer.
Summer, the original mother of our kitties.
Who had the fleas.
Yeah, who had the fleas.
Full circle.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, while I was up there, my plan was I was going to drive out. It's about 13, 14 miles on a 4-wheel drive trail out into the wilderness to an abandoned like health asylum from the 1800s. And
as opposed to other kinds of asylums. No. This is more of a retreat. It's a health asylum.
Well, because
Like-
it was a health resort, and it was
Such a
never
weird combination
It was
of
never
words.
billed as like it was never called an asylum,
Right.
but it's totally what we would have called like what Kellogg's had was an asylum. It's like the sanitariums.
Kellogg's?
Yeah, I guess I meant to say a sanitarium,
Oh,
not
okay.
not an asylum, a sanitarium. There
Health
we go.
sanitary.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like it had mineral hot springs and stuff out there in the middle of nowhere. And so I was bringing my pickup on the trip, and I only got a few miles down the road, and black smoke started billowing out of the back of my truck.
No.
It was my own fucking fault.
Was that the oil that I gave you?
Well, then I added more after that.
Okay. Cody was low on oil, so I gave him some oil, and I kind of feel responsible.
And then I
for this.
overfilled it because I wasn't thinking about the oil filter. I didn't change the oil filter, and the oil filter always has about a quart of oil in there. And so I put what needed to be in there, and I checked my dipstick, and it was like,
So was it overfilled with oil?
It overfilled with
Oh,
oil,
okay,
and so
got
then
it.
it got into, and it's an old
I would
mechanical
think-
carburetor.
I would think that would
so
just make it smoke, but it got into where it shouldn't have gone.
yeah, it got into like the air
Oh,
filter, and luckily it didn't fuck up the carburetor.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad it wasn't worse.
Well, I
That
only made it.
sucks.
I was only a few miles from home, so I got home.
That's
Long
good.
story short, didn't get to take the truck up. Didn't get to go to the sanitarium. There was a bed and breakfast in the next town over that is all railroad cabooses from the old Santa Fe Railroad.
Oh, fun.
And supposedly
Yeah.
they're haunted as shit, and so they come stay in a haunted caboose. And I almost did that, but the fuck if I'm going to pay $200 a night to stay in a
that's
haunted caboose?
That's too much.
Especially when
Come
I've got like
on.
a house. My mom's house was open for me, so
Yeah,
it's like I'm
you'd
not.
only be doing it for the thrill of the caboose, not for actually needing a roof over your head. That's way too
Yeah,
much.
so instead I got to spend some time with Summer
Nice.
and her girlfriend Danny
Right on.
and their bass player Steven. So hey guys.
Head on.
But yeah, so nothing spooky.
Exciting times this as summer gets into full swing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well now we're going to get started proper.
I like you sigh. You're like,
Okay, well also
here we
okay.
go.
I'm going to try to bring all the energy I can, but I am on day 2 of a massive migraine right now.
I'll pick up the slack for you.
as you're
I'll
gonna
be overly enthusiastic.
And the topic we're going to discuss is it's one of those ones where I just kept going deeper and deeper. And so like I've
yeah.
had to rein it in way in just to cover what we want to talk about. And it's still 3,000 words long,
God,
my
all right.
notes. Okay.
Well,
so,
we'll see how far we go with this.
okay. So
Okay.
let me preface all of this. This is the prologue to the entire topic.
I've
and
done a
story.
good job not stepping on your toes and explaining what we're talking about
Thank
already,
you.
haven't I?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm glad to be recognized. All right, go ahead.
So nothing exists in a vacuum, metaphorically, that is, right? Because particles burst in and out, right? So even in a vacuum,
Well,
right?
yeah, everything exists in a
Yeah,
vacuum. if you
right.
Think about it, but yeah.
Well, it's true. That's why I said metaphorically.
Yeah.
Everything exists in the vacuum of space, but metaphorically, nothing is in a vacuum.
Yeah.
That is, or at least it's true, particularly culturally. Nothing humans do, either alone or in groups, is done in a vacuum. Everything that we do as humans is within a context.
Oh yeah.
And context is the key to and the core of understanding just about everything.
Some might even say context is king.
Yeah. Now, I disagree with the notion that there is no such thing as free will. I will, however, concede that our choices are limited through context. And since context is affected by those choices, what we end up with is something like an Ouroboros or a snake eating its own tail, where it's consequences and choices, and you don't really... It may look like there is no...
You may think that, well, I have no alternative. I must do this. Where
Yeah.
in truth, you always have a choice.
You always have a
either
choice.
Engage with the thing or not.
And sometimes the only choices you have available to you are awful, but you still have a choice.
Right.
I bring this up because what we're about to discuss is only part of a much bigger picture.
Okay.
And as we'll find out, context is everything. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
Part 1. The Nazis.
Oh, okay. Now it's all coming together. All right. Okay.
So what we're going to be talking about today is about Nazis and stealing artifacts and just taking artifacts in general. But this was your idea, Garth.
Well, I think I remember talking to you about Raiders of the Lost Ark a while ago, and I love the idea of Nazis looking for occult items, and Cody was like, "Oh no, they were," and I was like, "Really?" And it's like, well, that's at least Haunted episode. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Nazis trying to get, not necessarily the Ark of the Covenant, but other stuff. And I don't know anything about this, so
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It is something that they looked for in one of the Indiana Jones movies.
Oh shit.
Okay, so since this episode is inspired by the fact that there's a new Indiana Jones movie,
right?
Again,
The Dial of Destiny.
So we need to talk about the Nazis.
Okay.
Anyone unfamiliar, real quick, with Indiana Jones? It's a film character who is... Look, if you're unfamiliar, it means you're probably living under a rock, much like archaeologists look under to find things.
Even if you lived under a rock, you...
right.
But this will be spoilers for Indiana Jones.
He's a globe-trotting archaeologist.
Except for no spoilers for The Dial of Destiny,
Yeah.
because I have not seen it, and I don't know that you have. But if you've heard anything about it, please don't tell
I
me.
haven't.
Okay.
The first 3 movies take place in the 1930s. For 2 of them, Indy is pitted against Nazis who are looking for sacred magical artifacts.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk more about Indy later in Garth's Corner. But the context here is Nazis and their search for magical sacred artifacts.
Uh-huh.
Now, this aspect of the plot of those 2 Indiana Jones films is actually pretty accurate. I can't speak...
Were they trading Rolls-Royce Phantom 2s for access to...
Well, I can't speak for faces melting or seemingly immortal Templar knights crusting away in the city of Petra and Jordan.
Okay.
But as for Nazis racing around the globe, digging shit up and stealing ancient shit, that's true.
Wow, okay.
And not just like sacred artifacts. As we're going to find out, the Nazis had like 2 artifact stealing operations going on. There's one that Hitler's doing where he's taking all this art and important stuff. And then what we're going to look at more is what was going on with the SS. But in order to understand the Nazi obsession with objects such as the Holy Grail, the Lance of Longinus, sacred gold bowls, and Ark of the Covenant and whatnot, although I don't think they ever actually looked for the Ark of the Covenant, but the other stuff they were looking for.
Okay.
There's 2 other pieces of context we need to look at. First, the tradition and origin of the fields of archaeology and anthropology in a framework of colonialism and empire, and the occult and supernatural roots of the Nazi movement itself. Ever since the first people to conquer or subjugate another group of people, the winner always took home the spoils of war. Mm-hmm. Be it food, slaves, treasure, even the loser's gods, things were taken. The first museum, as we would call it, was actually built in ancient Mesopotamia around the year 530 BCE.
Wow.
It was founded by a woman. We know her name. It was Enigaldi. She was the daughter of King Nabonidus in the state of which is in modern-day Iraq.
Wow.
In 1925, archaeologists were digging at this palace site, and they were perplexed by finding collections of certain artifacts that spanned thousands of years. Like multiple generations and cultures.
How are these all collected in one place?
But they were all grouped together by type as if they were curated.
Whoa.
So they theorized, like, well, maybe this is some kind of museum. And sure enough, they then found cuneiform museum labels for all the objects.
Oh my gosh. And this is Mesopotamia.
Yeah. And so they're like documenting where they came from. So this is so she would have been doing this in 530 BCE.
Now this is post, because you always hear about the Mesopotamians, like, oh, that's like one of the original cultures. This would have been later than that.
No,
right?
this is what would have been called like the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So this is like the end of that whole era.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
Some of the things that are labeled though are from the 20th century BCE. So that would have been something that was from over
4,000 years ago.
Yeah, but for her, that was something that was like over 2,000. It was like.
Now, how did she date it?
I don't know.
Is the question.
I mean,
how would they know?
Some of it might have been. A lot of it was looted. It seems like. So okay, let me get it. So she learned her love of ancient artifacts from her dad.
Okay.
Who was the emperor of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and he could be potentially claimed as the first archaeologist. Because as king, he collected artifacts and special objects from the breadth of his empire and had them brought in like to one place. As well as he restored ancient monuments and artifacts. It was like a hobby of his. So, is it a true museum? It's more accurate to call it probably a royal's private collection of looted goods.
Yeah.
So yeah, a fucking museum.
I was gonna say if it wasn't open to the public, but I don't even know what the public would be at that point.
Yeah, but I'd imagine that some of the stuff that they took were they knew what it was either by stories that were associated with it. If it's a famous object, you know.
Yeah.
So they invented writing, so there was documentation.
Okay, interesting.
So this aspect of taking significant goods from conquered peoples continued through into ancient Rome. The capital city of Rome was full of looted artifacts. They were brought back as a symbol of the power and might of the empire.
That's where they had what was the name of the parade the Romans would have when they would bring stuff in? A triumph.
A triumph.
Yeah, the triumph.
Oh man, have you seen the show Rome from
No, I haven't. You guys were getting into it, right?
It's only 2 seasons, so it's not a lot.
Nice.
I think it's like maybe 20 episodes.
Is it pretty historically accurate?
It's pretty goddamn accurate, except that they created 2 fictional characters who are like your who are the guys from Hamlet that are Guildenstern and
Radenstein.
Yeah. So they create these 2 characters who basically like Forrest Gump their way through the formation of the Roman Empire.
Oh, just as a narrative device.
Yeah.
Okay,
so, but other than that, everything else is pretty goddamn accurate.
Okay, so they had triumphs and they would bring stuff from the Roman Empire is huge. Yeah. That's all the Mediterranean and fingers extended into Africa and
so anywhere to show like how powerful they were. It was a metaphorical way to display that Rome owned the people and lands and cultures from which the artifacts came. It's a power flex.
Totally.
These captured artifacts included tombs. They would deconstruct like tombs of famous heroes and bring it there.
Not objects, but whole buildings.
Relics of mythological heroes, statues of gods, and even Egyptian obelisks, which they would then modify to add like more things to it. So like there's, I think after the death of Cleopatra, they like brought like an obelisk that she had built with her name on it, and it now sits in the middle of Rome to say like, yeah, we fucking took that.
That's crazy. Out. So they took old artifacts and then like redid them.
Yeah.
And like drew new, like carved new things into them.
And incorporated them into other things. Wow. Yeah. As a show of power. Now, jumping ahead to the 19th century, Common Era, colonial empires continue to be all the rage. And the tradition of bringing home treasures from abroad continued in full swing. And following the Roman tradition of showcasing appropriated cultural artifacts as a show of power, public museums were now places where citizens of the empire can come to enjoy and view just how baller their empire is.
Come to the
British Museum.
Come to the British Museum and see the world that we have conquered.
Yeah, pretty much.
The sun never sets on the British Museum.
Now, out of all this comes the field of archaeology and anthropology. It's a shameful part of the history of my chosen field.
Yeah.
It has its roots in racist colonialism. Now, early anthropologists and archaeologists were able to do their research in many cases only because it served the needs or interest of a colonial power. It's a lot easier to get access to places that are under control of some other group,
This is one of those instances where it's like, well, you can have a bad thing, but out of it comes a good thing. Like, wasn't, I believe, Darwin, when he went to the Galapagos, which led to the theory of natural selection, wasn't he on Captain Cook's boat? Or not?
No,
Captain
he was on the
Cook?
Beagle.
He was on the Beagle, but I think that was a military.
Yeah, it was an expedition.
Yeah, it was a military expedition.
Yeah. He was just the naturalist on board to document what they find.
So, yeah.
He like ate every animal that he documented. That guy fucking ate like a bunch of Galapagos tortoises.
He ate the blue-footed boobies?
Oh yeah, he was eating everything.
Wow.
He also discovered a bunch of fossils that he identified as like giant extinct sloths, which is pretty cool. I think he found them in the Andes. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, the job of these early archaeologists and anthropologists was to recover and bring back artifacts and to find evidence to bolster racist justifications for colonialism. And a lot of them.
The white man's burden. We're taking care of these guys. And
they're but children.
We're saving their culture because they're not taking care of it
themselves.
Man.
One anthropologist who, I guess he technically... is also a sociologist, so he's a fucking sociologist. I remember reading one of his books in one of my anthropology classes and like going to the professor and like, no, fuck this guy fucking sucks. I hate this goddamn book. And then for like the next 2 years, every time I'd see that professor, he would like, when he'd be talking, or if I had a class up and he'd bring this guy up, he'd always make a point to let everybody know that Cody does not like him.
Cody does not approve of. Well, what was your professor?
I do not
advocating for this guy?
No, it's like
he just brought him up, and you were just really
because it's part of the field. It's like like he
yeah.
contributed ideas to the field, so you kind of have to know like. If you're learning music, you gotta know some of the theory or the basic class.
I'm just imagining you in your early 20s just
all I can say is
gets brought up, you get so upset.
Fuck Claude Levi Strauss, that fucking racist piece of shit.
Levi Strauss.
I know, right?
Sounds familiar.
Like the pants. Wait, make sure that is really his name.
Was that the dude?
He's
Is this a situation where it's like didn't Hugo Boss make
No, he
Nazi
is.
uniforms?
He's Claude Levi Strauss. He's a French anthropologist.
Not related to the pants.
No.
Pants
He wrote
man.
this book called Tres Tropiques, which is all about his like adventures in Brazil, in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil.
Uh-huh.
And he's just describing all the indigenous people as if they are subhuman, you know?
Okay.
And then at one point he's
Is this like Rudyard Kipling level, or is this like
This
really...
happened like in the later 20th century. I think.
What?
Is he might have only recently
Oh,
died.
I was imagining somebody 100 years ago. Oh, geez. Okay, well.
Oh, well, now, so anyway, in this book, he's like talking about seeing. Oh God, there's this punchable face. Yeah, that fucker's dead.
We've gotten good feedback on Cody being indignant about people, so
letting it hang out. Look, I got a headache, and this guy is a headache. In the book, he talks about seeing like the nubile adolescent like native women and
nubile.
Like yeah, and he's like describing them in very male gaze sexualized tones.
Okay, yeah.
And how they would writhe about naked before him, spreading their legs like they wanted him to basically rape them. And then you get like 5 chapters in before he ever mentions, oh yeah, by the way, my wife was with me, and that's all he says about her. So it's like him.
I feel like I need more context for all of this. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway. Can we talk about something less upsetting?
Sure,
Nazis.
you brought him up. Let's talk about Nazis.
Okay, let's talk about the Nazis. Okay.
Was there anything else about Levi Strauss that you was pertinent to this?
Oh yeah, like he didn't even take notes during the thing he's writing about. He's writing about it from memory as he's on a boat fleeing like Cuba as the communists are taking over, and he's like lamenting it like the loss of like his playground basically.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, just rich French white guy who's sexist and racist.
He's basically the bad guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes. Back to Nazis. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All the stuff I was saying about the origin of anthropology, of course, that's simplified and it's like condensed soup version. I mean, people take whole courses on this kind of thing. But just know that anthropology arose in the context of colonialism and racism.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, as we will see with the Nazis, this context of displaying power and providing justification for their racial policies helps explain part of their obsession with collecting artifacts, treasures, and art. But the other context, like I said, is the very roots of Nazism are deeply in the well of the occult.
Now, this is news to me. I'm very curious about how, because I mean, the Nazi philosophy is so all over the place and self-contradictory and just like crazy. Like,
yeah.
I didn't know that there was an occult angle to it too. So yeah, I'm very curious about
So
this.
yeah, here's the thing is that I've come to realize through doing this research is that people always talk about the Nazis as a political movement. It's
Right.
not. It's a cult. It is a cult of personality around Adolf Hitler.
As we've seen, por qué no los dos? Like,
Right. Well, that's the thing is that the reason people don't consider it a cult is because it's not a religious cult because their figurehead isn't seen as some sort of divine
yeah.
being.
Again, look at
However-
modern times.
However, as we're going to
They go
find
together.
out, there is a whole branch of the Nazi movement that is like the religious aspect. They just don't like worship Hitler. It's more about the idea.
But a lot of the same trappings of a religion.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, the Nazi movement should be fascinating to people. If for nothing else, then it is a cautionary tale.
Yeah, it's a look out for these things because this is what happened last time.
About how whole societies can be moved to do inhuman things.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to wrap my head around it always gives me a goddamn headache, and I have a
That's
headache
why
right now.
you have a migraine at the moment.
It might have been. It's been I've
Yeah.
spent the last like several days researching this and like working on these notes, and it's
Oh gosh, we're gonna do a fun topic next time. I promise. Cody.
So anyway,
poor guy.
The
even in
Nazis, like
Okay.
everything else, did not just come out of a vacuum. Although I know everything came out of a vacuum, Garth.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Germany is a unified country. I don't know if you knew this. It did not exist prior to the end of the 19th century.
I did know that.
Before, it was just a collection of smaller states joined in various federations that were only like connected by a common language and some cultural heritage. But it wasn't until there was like the Holy Roman Empire, but it had collapsed, and this is like
that's
afterwards.
different.
Yeah, but it wasn't like called
but
Germany.
the unification of Germany was what, like the 1850s or 60s?
1871
Oh,
is
okay.
when it would be unified into the German Empire. That's the first time it's called Germany.
And as soon as it unified, it became like the biggest country in Europe. And pretty much that's when everybody started preparing for World War One, because like, oh no, and like it was inevitable that like something was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I say that's the first time it's called Germany. That's not true. I mean, the Romans knew the whole area is Germania.
Okay,
but this is like the first time there's like a single country.
It has a
country.
It has a unified
Yeah,
government.
yeah.
Now I understand.
Okay. During this time, German-speaking peoples were looking for some sort of unifying shared cultural identity for their new state. This continued out of the Romantic period of the first half of the 19th century in Europe. I don't want to get too much into the Romantic period, but basically it's like a reaction to the Enlightenment movement, and it's when people in Europe they started to look back to the past and celebrate ideas of individualism and returning to like nature and more emotional things, whereas rationalism...
The Romantics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it's called Romantic not because of... kind of you're like, oh, is it going back to like Roman like times? Like, well, no, that's like what the Renaissance was. They call it Romantic because there was a time when, and this is true in some languages, still, like in Norwegian, for example, the word for novel, like a novel that you would read, is Roman. It's just Roman.
The word is I'm reading a Roman today.
Yeah, it's Roman.
It's really good.
And this is what they're using it in that way, is that there was a time when novels were called Romans because prior to this point in history, your reading materials are pretty limited. It's either
the Bible,
religious text, or your only thing that would be considered like kind of what a novel is are things that were written by like ancient Romans.
Yeah, or like I guess the ancient Greeks or something.
Right, yeah.
But
So-
but the Romans gathered all those.
Yeah,
up,
yeah. So they call them Romans.
Wow. Okay.
So then there's German romanticism, which is like a subset of that, and that would lead to this thing called the Volkish movement or Folkish movement. Volk meaning people or the folk, kind of like Volkswagen.
I was about to say, is it a wagon of the people?
Right?
Okay,
yeah. The Volkish movement would seek to find a shared cultural unifier for the new nation. Spoiler: nationalism.
Yeah. No, I can see that because it's kind of like, well, I mean, this country had it a little bit in the founding of the United States. We had all these colonies over states, but we're going to be unified. Well, we got to have a state bird and a motto and a flag.
And we had to make like
and we got to have like a whole
like
background,
a mythology.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. We need a mythology, so
Yeah.
we all feel like we're the same country.
And that's kind of what happens here. German Volkish thinkers sought to reject non-Germanic influences and return back to a mythologized ancient German past, one that didn't really exist. This would be influenced by the ongoing spiritualist movement,
Oh wow, yeah, gosh, this is so recent. That's so crazy.
as well as theosophism, which was briefly mentioned in our
Yeah.
episode Psychic Wars Part 1.
Remind me what theosophism is.
It was this like pseudo-religious cult started by this Russian woman living in the United States named Lady Blavatsky.
Oh yeah.
Or Bravatoski.
Bravatoski,
And then and remember,
I
like
think.
they revealed that there was a whole hoax going on where she was like dictating these letters from the dead, and they found out like, no, here's her partner who was actually writing them. Yeah, a fraud. But it didn't matter that she was a fraud because her teachings made their way back to Europe, where they got incorporated into the Volkish movement, where you now had people claiming to be ancient pagan warlocks who were communicating through theosophist techniques with their direct ancestors, who were now dictating to them ancient German religion and cultural practices.
Wow. What a bunch of creative people. That's pretty.
Yeah. So this led to an interest in paganism and, like I said, a reconstructed ancient religion of Northern Europe, sometimes called Wodenism. And they also were all about the superiority of such things, which then became very popular in the new German Empire.
Okay.
So this is going on pre-World War I. This leads to a intermediary group before the Nazis called the Thule Society.
Oh, okay.
It came out of, it was a Volkish group that came to believe that there was an ancient superior race on an island in the far north, because it was mentioned in, I think Plato mentioned that there was an island called Ultra Thule, which was like the farthest north you could go. Sometimes they identify this as Iceland, like maybe the Greeks knew about Iceland.
Yeah,
because they talk about
certainly not as far north as you can go.
But... Well, they talk about how there's a place where the sun doesn't set.
Oh, okay, so something where in the Arctic
and there's
Circle.
ice and stuff like that. Yes, this was Ultra Thule. Well, these Volkish movements decided that was the Aryan homeland.
Okay, and that's where Aryan comes from.
Even though there really is a group that is the Aryans, and they're from India.
Which is very confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not who they're talking about.
Different kind of Aryan.
Yeah,
okay.
So the Thule Society would... many of the early founders of the Nazi Party in the 1920s came from the Thule Society, which kind of ceased to exist, but they were incorporated into the Nazis.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what leads into the whole white superiority thing. The roots of it are in the Germans creating a history that never existed for their country. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That was influenced by people doing spiritual, pseudo-religious, occult things.
Yeah, they're speaking for the dead, and
for example,
my ancestors telling me what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, like they used like the runes, like the SS runes for the SS.
Yeah, like
the two
the,
lightning
the
bolts.
Stylized. It looks like a heavy metal.
Yeah. That was actually like they reinterpreted a whole new group of runes. I'm trying to remember what they were called, that were based on Scandinavian runes, but they just like ascribed a whole bunch of new meanings so it would fit in with this like new fake thing they're creating.
They're basically just appropriating a previous thing and just jamming it into their ideology. Okay, got it. Interesting.
So, Heinrich Himmler.
Yes.
He's the head of the SS. That's the Schützenstrasse or Schützenstrafe. I don't know. SS. The SS is founded as a group of they are the most hardcore Nazis. To be in the SS, you have to prove that you don't have any Jewish ancestry by going through genealogy. You have to do a bunch of crazy ritual things. When you're indoctrinated, you get a skull's head, a Totenkopf ring that you wear. Are we the baddies?
I was about to say, this reminds me of I think that was why
they're the baddies.
If you have skull imagery in your iconography, you might just be a bad guy.
Yeah, so they're the baddies. So Hermann Hesse is the leader of them.
Not Hermann Hesse.
Sorry, Heinrich.
Oh God, no.
Heinrich Himmler.
Oh, okay, yeah, Heinrich Himmler.
Hermann Hesse, famously persecuted by the Nazis.
Yeah, really.
No, Heinrich Himmler. He rose up to become the head of the SS and build it into an organization that at its height would have 800,000 members. SS,
not all Nazis are SS.
No,
SS are the heavy
but
duty.
The SS are the ones. Yeah, they're the ones who are given. For example, who's running the concentration camps? The SS.
Okay.
They're
the most fanatical that would actually do the worst.
Yeah. So Himmler, he believes that in order for the new Reich to succeed, there has to be a new German religion, basically, and that in order for this new religion to be legitimate, it would need physical connections to the ancient past. Likewise, there would need to be other evidence to back up the story that Aryan peoples were once a widespread superior race. See the Nazi trip to Tibet mentioned in Abominable Life?
Oh, yeah.
Remember we talked about how the Nazis went looking for the Yeti?
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one thing they're doing.
They're trying to legitimize their new religion by finding artifacts of ancient things.
Yeah, and doing and trying to also send ethnologists and anthropologists out to prove the inferiority of other races.
I think I remember learning about this in college. I took a class on the Holocaust, and they were talking about Nazi propaganda and how they were basically planting artifacts and saying oh, look at this pottery. It's way older than anything we've seen before. Look how and this was our ancestors that made this. We invented this. They're just totally making stuff up.
Modified ancient sites even within Germany.
Wow. Yeah.
Including there's a castle that the SS picks to be their headquarters. And they trick it out in a bunch of weird ways. They renovate the crypt to a reliquary room where they're going to put all these artifacts.
Whoa.
And it's also supposedly where they are going to have a monument to any SS man who dies, and there's a bunch of rituals that happen there.
Wow.
If we have time, we'll talk about it in a Polterbites after this. I'll tell you all about the gold bowl.
The gold bowl.
Oh yeah, the big gold bowl. It's a nice gold bowl.
Sign up to Patreon for $1 a month to get exclusive content.
Gold bowl.
Gold bowls.
Anyway, so there's a lot more to it, but that is just the context for what comes next.
Okay.
Enter the Nazi archaeologists and anthropologists. It's story time, Garth.
Oh boy, story time, everybody. Okay.
Today's story.
Cue the story time theme song. It's story time. It's story time. Let's all listen to a story time.
Today's story. Otto Rahn in the Nazi quest for the Holy Grail.
They actually looked for the Holy Grail.
Now, I'm surprised that this story I'm about to tell you wasn't like, at the very least, a drunk history, because this is a batshit crazy story.
Okay, so do I did bring a beer. Do you want to get drunk? You don't drink at all, so
No, I'm just getting stoned.
Okay.
But if you haven't cracked your beer, you should crack your beer.
I should crack my beer. Okay,
Yeah, go grab your simpler
Hold on.
times.
Drunk history, which was not renewed for the next season. We're gonna do our little drunk history here, except for it's Cody,
And he's not drunk; he's stoned.
and I'll be drinking.
In the smokes of history.
The smokes of history are the clouds are parting, and we're seeing a story about the Nazis looking for the Holy Grail for real.
Otto Rahn was born in 1904 in the mountainous Oldenwald region of southwest Germany. As a boy, he became interested in romanticized stories of historical Germanic heroes. This interest may have been imparted on him by his mother, who shared many of these stories with him for the first time. In particular, the 13th century epic poem Parzival, which retold the story of the knight Percival from the King Arthur mythos.
I've heard of Parzival because it was mentioned in Ready Player One.
Oh, okay.
That was the name of the main character. That was his avatar.
Ugh, weird. When you find the context of Parzival in this story, that's going to seem kind of weird in retrospect. Okay.
Right.
So yes, he's obsessed with this 13th century poem about it, and it would become one of his favorites. In fact, it would become like the key to his like doctoral work later.
The poem that defined his life.
He studied philology in college. Do you know philology?
I'll know it. I'll remember it when you tell me what it is. That's
so it's the study of language in both the spoken and written form, but it's different than like etymology. It's all because they also study like written texts and use interdisciplinary stuff like it's like a combination of etymology, literal criticism, linguistics, and history all in one. So they're looking for like the origin of words and language, but they do it through comparing texts.
Oh, okay.
And they usually, so if you say you find an ancient manuscript and you're like, I want to know if this thing is authentic. Well, you'd send it to the philologist.
They're going to look for clues.
Because they would know, like,
this word was used in this way at this time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've looked at enough stuff that they can also probably say, like, well, this is newer parchment, or that's not how the ink would look. It's modern ink.
Okay.
So they're like these linguistical detectives.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That is really cool.
So he studies philology, and at the age of 20, he receives his degree in it. While working towards this degree, a professor of his recommended that he might find some interest in learning about the Cathars.
Oh, yeah, the Cathars.
You know the Cathars?
I'm aware of them, but I don't know much about them, but I've heard of them.
Well, you're going to learn some more about them right now. The Cathars were a heretical sect of Christians primarily located in southern France from the late 11th century through the 14th century.
Okay.
I guess like originally it came from Bulgaria in Eastern Europe and it moved its way over.
This is pre-Protestant, but they're not Catholic. They're just like another sect of Christians.
Yes, yeah. Okay. They were like really obsessed with like the poverty aspect and the rejection of the material world aspect of Jesus. So, so here we go. So why were they
take it to some extreme that was awful?
Well, the reason they're heretical, or at least to the Catholic Church, was that first of all, they were dualistic. That is, they believed in two gods. Catholicism is supposed to be a monotheism. So so Catholicism is supposed to be a monotheism if you ignore the Trinity, the veneration of the Virgin Mary, and all the saints.
We're gonna fall down the rabbit hole. We're on the edge of it. Don't do it, Cody. No, don't do it.
The Cathars believe there was a god of the material world who was evil, and a god of the spiritual world who was good.
Okay.
The God of the Old Testament, that was the evil god, aka Satan. Earth was created by the evil god.
Oh, that's crazy. So, because I was about to say, oh well, so they called that Satan, but their Old Testament God was Satan.
Yeah, the God of the New Testament.
Whoa,
that's the
that's
good God.
Far out.
Now,
I kind of like these Cathars.
I can sort of see the reasoning. I mean,
Yeah, me
God
too.
in the
you
Old
don't have to explain it at all, do you?
right? Yeah, I mean, God in the Old Testament tells Abraham to kill his only son as a joke.
Yeah,
You
just
know?
to see.
Just to
I
see.
wasn't gonna let him do it. I just wanted to see.
Now, why this might be problematic, though, even if you're not Catholic and only believe in monotheism, is that by that definition, Jewish people are Satan worshippers.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so you can justify doing bad things.
Yeah, okay.
Also, the Cathars believed in reincarnation, though. To them, we are all
What?
just vessels of angelic spirits who are trapped on the evil material world by the evil god.
Doesn't that kind of...
Through being a good Christian, it's possible to move on to the good spiritual world in heaven. But if you fuck it up, you have to do it all over again.
Oh, so they're mixing Buddhism.
Like Hinduism get mixed in, yeah.
Well, kind of Buddhism, too, because the whole idea is you get out of having to be
Yeah.
reincarnated. Oh, wow, that's far out.
And
Okay.
part of this might just be because Christianity arose in, the Levant area. It's the Eastern Mediterranean. You have trade routes that go through there.
Oh, well, the Silk Road.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of went
So,
nearby, I think.
There is definitely influences that are getting mixed in from all over the ancient world in this.
Whoa.
They practiced a form of baptism called consolamentum. Consolamentum. It was meant to cleanse an adherent and was typically done only later in life, since afterwards the baptized was meant to be a pescatarian and celibate.
So you want to get all of your meat eating and fucking done.
I think it's more the celibate thing. Is like, if you want to increase your numbers for this order, wait until after you have a kid to become celibate.
Yeah, all right. Well, when you're finished with that part of your life, then you can go do the
Yeah.
second. Okay, got it.
So all this pissed the Catholic Church off, of course.
Well, it wasn't their doctrine.
So what's one to do if you're the Catholic Church other than launch a crusade
Some
against the
kind of a holy
Cathars of
war.
France?
Yeah.
Notice the Albigensian Crusade, or Crusades. It eventually led to the complete annihilation of the Cathars.
Wow.
A primary event of which being a massacre at one of the last strongholds of the Cathars, a Castle Montesur in the Pyrenees Mountains,
Oh, wow.
in which 200 unrepentant Cathars were burned alive with the castle, which was then subsequently razed to the ground.
All for the love of Jesus.
Well, also, it seems that crusade, they used the Cathars as a moral panic to justify interfering with the monarchy of France.
Oh, I see. Oh, the French king is letting these guys do their thing and they're evil, so...
Well, it seems like that whole region of France was like pretty independent from the French
okay,
king.
So they're just looking for
And
an
they're in
excuse.
cahoots with the Catholic Church. And yeah, so it's a big like
Wow.
conspiracy.
It's all politics.
Yeah. So Otto Rahn, after reading about this, he's super into it, and he becomes convinced that there was a link between the poem of Percival and the Cathars at Montesur.
Now, what was the poem of Percival?
That
Did
was
you
that-
just explain that?
That was the retelling of the Knight from the Round Table. That was like his whole thing.
Okay.
It's all about the search for the Holy Grail.
Oh, okay. We haven't heard that story yet.
That was Otto Rahn's backstory.
Okay.
Was that when he was a kid, his mom, he read the
No,
story.
that was Otto Rahn's backstory, but did we ever hear Percival's story about the Holy Grail? You haven't.
I'm not going to tell that story here.
Oh, okay.
There's no time. It's about.
There's
it's
no
about
time for the story within your story time?
It's
Okay.
about the. I didn't read the whole story. It's fucking the Holy Grail
He goes to
mythos.
it's just the Holy Grail of
It's
just the standard Holy Grail
But
story.
specifically the quest of Percival, who is
Just
one of
see
the
Monty
knights.
Python if you want to know the
Yes,
story.
exactly.
Got it.
Okay,
Moving
because he's
on.
the one. Percival's the one who ultimately finds the Grail. Because he
Okay.
perseveres. Percival
He persevered.
Persevered.
And unlike the end of Monty Python, they actually found it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry for that.
No, that's all right. I was just waiting to hear the Holy Grail story.
No, not gonna tell him that.
All right.
Anyway, Otto Rahn, he becomes convinced that there's some connection between that 13th century poem specifically,
Okay.
and he thinks it has hidden Da Vinci Code type messages
Oh.
about the Cathars at Montesur. So this is like,
And the Cathars are already
Gone.
Anti-Semitic.
yeah,
One.
yeah,
And there's hidden meanings. Okay.
yeah. So
Got
this
it.
is yeah, it's like this is
I'm seeing everything falling into place.
Yeah.
That's why I'm speaking out loud. All right,
Okay.
continue.
so he wants to know what they're hiding there. Perhaps an object, maybe the Holy Grail.
Oh, the modern quest begins.
Yes. I think actually some of this story ended up being the inspiration for Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code in a roundabout way.
Oh,
except
interesting.
swap out Cathars for Templars.
Right.
And there you go.
Right.
Okay, so he actually manages to get to go there and perform a dig.
Now, is this pre-Nazis? Is he a Nazi? Is this the 30s already?
This is like 1931.
Okay. And is he an SS officer? Is he involved?
This hasn't happened yet. So, like, they're still Germany. Like, the Nazis are still rising to power,
but they're not. They haven't taken control of Germany.
Yeah, it's going to happen somewhere right around here.
Okay, got it.
If they haven't already, they're pretty much close. But at this point, he's still just doing whatever. So he goes to the castle in the Pyrenees, and he consults with a local warlock, pretty much.
As you do in the Pyrenees.
You do, yeah.
I went to the Pyrenees once. There were a bunch of local warlocks.
Well, I hear that deep underneath the Pyrenees is where Xenu's buried, but...
We're in spaceships. Take a visit to the Pyrenees.
The music of Beck makes a lot more sense when you realize that these are Scientology hymns, okay?
That's all those words he's making up.
There's one where he talks about taking a trip to the Pyrenees in a spaceship. We're in spaceships. Take a visit to the Pyrenees. Yeah, anyway.
I don't know my whole.
He talks. That's one where he says. That's where he says where his dog comes from Modesto.
From Modesto. That's where my dog comes from.
Anyway, none of this is what we're talking about. Again, see, that's why the story gets confusing.
It's okay. It's okay. I was planning on cutting all that anyway.
Okay.
Pyrenees. You mentioned Cthulhu under the Pyrenees. Continue.
Xenu. So he goes there, consults with the warlock. They start digging. He finds secret tunnels and hidden alcoves under the castle, but nothing in there.
Shit.
In 1933, he writes a book about this whole experience, and he calls it Crusade Against the Grail. The book sells poorly.
Against the Grail?
Yeah. However, the book would come to the attention of one very powerful figure in the Reich.
Adolf Hitler?
50-50 guess.
Or Himmler. It's Himmler.
It's Himmler.
It's a him.
Heinrich Himmler.
It's a H-ler somebody.
Yeah.
It's Himmler. Okay.
It's weird how their names are so
I know,
similar.
yeah. I'm sure we're not the first people to notice that, but
so, as mentioned before, Himmler was the main occult Nazi guy.
Right.
So he summons Otto, and he shares his admiration for the book and wants Otto to keep researching. So I guess by this point, the SS is a thing.
Okay, and that's what I was wondering. So now Otto's getting swooped up by the SS.
Yeah,
and he's working for them, and he's going to do more research.
Yeah, so Himmler commissions Otto to write 2 more books, future books. He says he wants one ready by 1937 and the second by 1939.
You are now part of the Nazi propaganda apparatus, and this is what you're going to have to do.
He then gives Otto a private office and a secretary and lets him do his research. So the meeting with Himmler put Otto Rahn in a tough position. On the one hand, here was someone with state power and resources commissioning him to conduct the research that was his passion. And on the other hand, that person was Heinrich fucking Himmler, one of the most evil men to ever live.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten into our Holy Grail enthusiasts' feelings about Nazis. Is he? I mean, I guess he's for him because he's working for him at this point.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
So,
all right.
This whole thing is what we would call in a narrative a deal with the devil.
Yes.
So after accepting the offer, all of Otto's friends and relations were put under surveillance by the SS because the SS don't fuck around. They want background searches on everybody.
You better have expected that to happen.
As Rahn would later tell a friend, "Was I supposed to do? Turn him down?" Yeah, dude. Yeah.
As we mentioned at the top of the episode, you always have a choice, buddy.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Say no to the fucking...
But a secretary. I would have my own office.
And
how could I say no?
Right. In addition to doing his Cathar research, Otto was given other duties. He was tasked with conducting genealogy research of Himmler's family in order to put together a family tree that could tie Himmler to heroic Aryan past.
Well, that would give him some brownie points. You better find a way.
He was also sent to Iceland as part of an SS mission to research the ancient Norse sagas and see if there was anything that they could use in that regard.
Now, I'm wondering, because Himmler's a fucking crazy-ass fanatic, but he was also making shit up. Was he kind of just going like, go find me some information? Or did he really want him to actually find stuff? Or was it just kind of like, please make up some stuff that looks good.
I think it's a little bit of both.
I'm wondering
Here's the
about
thing that I can't.
Was he drinking his own Kool-Aid?
That's the thing I can't figure out. Is I don't know to what extent he really believed in the supernatural ability of these things.
So hard to tell.
And whether he just knew it was like any cult leader, like this is very useful.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point probably
maybe it changed over the course of things.
It's weird that he wanted to find the Holy Grail when he himself said that he hated Christianity and didn't believe in Christianity, but he was looking for like a Christian. Yeah, exactly.
Artifacts.
The power of having that, like just the fucking symbolic power. Say no, we have the Holy Grail. So he's sent to Iceland to find this Norse stuff, and despondent at being in Iceland and not in the south of France researching the Cathars, Otto was alleged to have thrown up his arms at one point and cry out, "I want to see trees!"
Oh, poor guy. I get it, dude. Oh, I get it.
No sympathy for the Nazis.
No, but wanting to see trees.
In 1936, Himmler was satisfied enough with the results that Otto Rahn was delivering and had him inducted formally into the SS. He would eventually attain the rank of Obersturmführer, which is a junior company commander in charge of about 50 to 100 men.
Obersturmführer.
A one-time friend saw Otto in his SS uniform in the street, and upon giving a disapproving look, Otto was said to have shrugged and said, "A man has got to eat."
Oh, fuck you, Otto.
Now,
I'm starting to not like this
here
guy
is another.
very much.
Okay, well, here is another hitherto unmentioned piece of context regarding Otto Rahn. The context that would lead a former friend to be so disgusted with his membership in the SS. For you see, Otto Rahn was openly homosexual.
Openly?
He was also an alcoholic and a professed liberal.
So that's fucking crazy because the Nazis, I mean, obviously they were rounding up Jews, of course. But they were rounding up all kinds of people, liberals and gay people and so forth. But he was open about it.
Yeah, he was,
and yet he was an SS dude.
Yeah,
Wow.
the SS, for the record, were the same branch of Nazis that oversaw the concentration camps. Where in addition to Jews, Romani, communists, the physically and mentally disabled, being exterminated, homosexuals were being murdered.
Is this kind of a situation where it's like, well, this is one of the good ones, or he's so useful to us, we're going to turn a blind eye?
Yeah. So how can one reconcile the compromising of their own identity and morals with actively helping the cause that is contrary to that identity and those morals?
Interesting person.
And why would Himmler look the other way regarding Otto Rahn's transgressions? The answer to both of these questions is the same. It's because they were useful.
Yeah.
Himmler was prepared to look the other way.
They're cynical even of their own stuff.
Yeah, as long as he produced results. However, Himmler did actually order Otto to stop drinking and to just knock it off with the gay shit.
Just quit it.
Right? Just stop.
Come on.
In 1937, Otto Rahn delivered his second book, right on schedule. The title was Lucifer's Court. In the book, he put forth his theory that the Prince of Darkness, i.e. the devil, was actually a positive figure who had been misaligned by Christianity. Himmler, who hated Christianity, fucking ate this shit up. And he ordered
These are the Nazis saying that the Nazis weren't so bad. It's like, oh, the devil's not so bad. He's gotten a bad rap. Oh, okay.
So Himmler orders 100 copies of the book to be bound in fine parchment, including one in pigskin. And he gave that one to Hitler himself as a birthday present. Otto Rahn then found himself as a Nazi celebrity with a lecture tour and speaking engagements all around the Reich. Around this time, a homosexual tryst, although I think Wikipedia describes it as a homosexual scrape, whatever the fuck
what
that.
The fuck does that mean?
I know,
that
right?
That sounds like he barely got away.
Right. Anyway, this kind of goes somewhat public, and so Himmler orders him to serve several months of guard duty at the Dachau concentration camp. After seeing the horrors of the camp, Rahn became a little more disillusioned and started to get more careless with his position and context within the Nazi regime. In 1938, he started to get even more lax in his researching duties and was spending more and more time outside of Germany in the company of undesirables. Spies reported to Himmler that Otto Rahn had been heard making embarrassing comments about the SS. He'd also consistently failed to provide his own genealogy to prove that he had no Jewish ancestry. He had also failed to make any significant progress on his third promised book, and was probably going to miss that deadline.
This is just...
The friends that he still had at this time noticed that he started to act depressive, agitated, and paranoid. And then there was the final straw. He was caught having a homosexual affair with a high-ranking member of the Luftwaffe. That's the German Air Force.
The flyers, yeah.
Yeah. This time, a furious Himmler ordered him to guard duty at another concentration camp, but this time at Buchenwald. If Dachau had horrified him, Buchenwald destroyed the last of his hope that he would make it out of this whole situation alive.
So it's like a threat.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to serve time as a guard, and here's what we're doing. So it's like an intimidation tactic of punishment.
In 1939, he resigned from the SS. But here's the thing. You don't get to just quit being a Nazi.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet that worked.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hell hath no fury like the Himmler scorned. Otto Rahn soon learned that the Gestapo was after him. He was given a choice. Either he remove himself from the equation with his reputation largely intact. After all, Himmler was still using his research in the ongoing operations of the SS machine.
That would explain why they didn't treat him more severely.
Or he would be removed in the Nazi way with extreme prejudice. Either a concentration camp or through some other means of maybe public trial, execution, or just extrajudicial murder.
Right.
In March 1939, Otto Rahn traveled to Seoul, in the Austrian Alps near Tyrol. Once there, he hiked up a frozen mountain while a late winter/early spring snow fell. On the 13th of March, almost 700 years to the day after the last of the Cathars had met their fiery end at Monsignor Castle, the frozen body of Otto Rahn was found along the mountain trail.
Wow.
It was apparently suicide. Although how he ultimately met his end is unsure. The fact that there was no rope around his neck or that he wasn't hanging from a tree means we could rule out autoerotic asphyxiation.
Oh, well done. Well done. Well done.
Normally I wouldn't make fun of somebody committing suicide, but the guy was a fucking Nazi.
No, that's all right.
But the most likely answer is that he probably took some sleeping pills and drank himself into a stupor and then froze to death.
Is there any chance he was assassinated? I guess, why would they have done it that way? They could have made an example of him, so probably not.
And thus ends the story of Otto Rahn, one of the inspirations for Indiana Jones. He was a man who wanted so badly to find the Holy Grail that he sold out everything he was and believed in just for the opportunity to follow his dream.
Wow.
After his death, Himmler continued to champion Rand's work, and his books were kept in publication right up to the final days of the war, even after paper rationing had come into effect.
Wow.
An obituary for Rand attributed his death to snowstorm and not suicide, and said, quote, "A decent SS member and the creator of marvelous historic and scientific works."
Wow, and that's his legacy.
There, of course, were conspiracy theories that he had faked his death and had escaped the Nazi regime.
To where? Argentina?
It's no longer a blue world, Mac. Where could we go?
Argentina?
Well, that's where the Nazis probably would have.
Yeah.
That's where they're all going. But if he was trying to get away from them.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to go to
But yeah, I don't
Brazil.
think that's very likely.
Probably not.
Ultimately, joining up with the SS to find the Cup of Christ would prove to be Otto Rahn's last crusade.
Ooh, yep.
And now, Garth's Corner.
All right.
Oh, we need to dig for bones.
Let's dig for some bones, and we're gonna come back with a Garth's Corner. I'm going to I've written a treatment for the next Indiana Jones movie, so I hope you'll indulge me with that. So see you on the other side, everybody. Let's dig for some bones.
Did you grow up with a lack of parental supervision? Do you know all the lyrics to The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Remember Mayor McCheese and the Fry Guys? Have an inexplicable love for the California Raisins? Can you remember Madonna's original face? Then you might be a part of the Doom generation. Laugh until you cry with us each week as we stumble blindly through the memories of the movies and other random things that doomed us to be the salty, sarcastic, sardonic ladies you want to hang with. You know us, you love us, you can't fucking live without us. Doom Generation, available everywhere you find podcasts.
Do you like scary stories?
I sure do.
Do you have scary stories of your own?
Yeah.
Stuff you've written?
I can in short order. Yeah, just give me a few minutes.
Or something that actually happened to you?
Oh, maybe I might. Yeah.
You want to share it?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're perfect. Least Haunted Campfire Club, Season 4, on Least Haunted YouTube channel. Come here, original and maybe true ghost stories.
As long as it's a good story, who cares if
Yeah,
it's true?
good stories accompanied with footage of a fire or something similar.
All summer, every other week that we're
Every
not
other
doing
week.
At Least Haunted show, we're gonna have this for a month or two, or until we run out of stories. Send your stories.
Yeah, so if you have a story that you want to share, send it in to leasthauntedpodcast@gmail.com. It can either be just the text, and we can read it for you,
Yep.
or you can record yourself telling the story.
Even better.
Try to keep it 10, 15 minutes tops.
That's the sweet spot for attention.
And we'll see you there.
Ready?
Yes.
Is it recording? Can you hear my voice?
I can see your waveform.
Okay, cool. Artifactized. It's an artifact that we've got to say it twice. Well, I got to do it again.
Oh, we also have to say we're welcome back.
Oh, welcome back. For those were some bones, weren't they? All right, here we go. Garth's Corner. Artifactized. It's artistic. In fact, if we say it twice, we'll plunder once or twice or thrice. And feed our state sponsor snakes, some indigenous mice. Steal the silverware, ye kleptomaniacs. The spoils of conquest, yeah, bring them all back. Shelve them and label them in your basement. And don't worry so much about their order or placement. Oh, it's an artifactized. They're not prisoners of their own device. We want them back. You thieves of yester-century, repatriate these poor nations. Oh, please, British gentry, our oligarchs want to park it. So do the old king's descendants. We might sell it on the black market, but thanks for your gracious repentance. It's a sticky wicket, as the Ewoks say. The shield generators, honey stores were repatriated today. It's a give it back heist. Maybe it's only right if we move it twice. Harrison Ford will atone, and he should have done it sooner. Here in Garth's Fan Fiction Corner. Yeah, so welcome to Garth's Fan Fiction Corner.
Ewoks? Were they?
Yeah. Well, I had to bring it into Indiana Jones, and you got to do it through Harrison Ford.
Yeah, but
It's a sticky wicket.
there were no Ewoks in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, but Wicket the Ewok got covered in honey that he stole from the shield generator. It makes perfect sense if you break it down. You got to listen to the song
Wait,
twice.
did he get covered in honey from the?
Well, you didn't see that scene. It wasn't pertinent to the show.
But
There was a whole deleted scene where he like trapped a bunch of stormtroopers in molasses.
okay.
All right. So anyway, I'm going to do a Garth's Corner here. I just set my guitar down. So I have a treatment here for Indiana Jones 6. I'm calling it Traders of the Lost Art. Get it? See?
I get it.
Ah, yeah. So I'm not sure if you heard about it, Cody, but there's a new Indiana Jones out called The Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
I have not seen it.
I heard about it. I mentioned it earlier in this episode.
Yes.
Sorry to ruin your
I
notes.
figured you had heard about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I haven't, so if you'd heard anything about it, please don't spoil it. But
Just
you
that he's
told me
old.
He is. Oh shit! It's not a. They didn't deep fake him to look young. It would have been awful. Did you ever see? Never mind. We're gonna get distracted.
Audience.
All right. So my idea for an Indiana Jones would be the next one. Now, I think this is supposed to be the last Indiana Jones, so I don't know if they kill him off or not. But we're just gonna say if they do. He did the Holy Grail thing. He's going to be alive forever. So
That was my understanding.
Yeah, so he just breaks out of his crypt. If, in fact, he does die in the Dial of Destiny. And I don't know if that's true. But if he does, they think he's dead, but he comes back. Anyway, he's alive now, and it's like the 80s. So
he's older than ever.
And I looked it up, and actually he was born in 1899, July 1st, to the day before my birthday. So anyway, so he'd be in his 80s now if it takes place in the 1980s.
Yeah.
So all right, we open on a giant yacht. He's on his way to a private island in the South Pacific. India's sporting an eye patch, as he did in Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. So he's like old man Indiana Jones. India's chatting up a wealthy millionaire who's going to be the bad guy. His name is Grantwell Farthingston. He's basically like he's going to be played by Hugh Grant, and he's like a British gazillionaire. He is trading rare artifacts and is also involved in like human trafficking. Bad guy. He's like evil.
Yeah.
This plot basically follows a lot of Temple of Doom, but it's like better. In my opinion,
better.
in all the ways that Temple of Doom